The food service and hospitality industries are evolving, often in ways you've never heard of, until now. Our host and technovator, Rob Grimes, is the leading voice of global food service and hospitality technology. Powered by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association, IFBTA, the Accelerate podcast is where technology and ideas are shared, served with a side of new innovation. Welcome to the Accelerate podcast.
So welcome back. Or actually, maybe I should say welcome to a special spotlight episode of Accelerate podcast powered by the IFBTA. I'm Rob Grimes, your host. And this week, we're going to have a very special conversation as part of our Spotlight series to really focus and drill down on different areas of technology within the hospitality, food service, retail industries. And we're going to be taking a look at touchscreens and self-service, or self-service and touchscreens. Maybe we'll look at it that way. And to do that, we have a very special guest with us today, and who's joining us really to talk about the integration of technology, what's coming in the future in this area, because it is such an important area, of our industry and of the things that we do. It's becoming more and more, and you know what, we're gonna talk a little bit about the history of that and why that actually might be, the case. So let me go ahead and get started and introduce to you Tyler Wells, who is the ISV and Strategic Partner Manager for Microtouch. So, Tyler, welcome to the first edition of an Accelerate Spotlight.
Hey, thanks, Robert. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, why don't we just start off with your background, and then we can talk a little bit about Microtouch, and then we're just really going to talk about, how you view the industry and where the opportunities are. So, what is your background?
My background is in tech hardware. So I originally broke into the industry about a decade ago, tinkering with small touchscreens for a company called Mimo Monitors. And then I got the opportunity to take that expertise and knowledge to the next level with Microtouch. So I build solutions with focus around the touchscreens that we manufacture from 7 inches to 65 inches. And I'm an integral part in working with hardware partners and ISV partners to build a solution to go to market with. So really, it was my curiosity in tech that got me into the industry, and it's that continued curiosity that has made it a fun career and a successful one.
So do you consider yourself a engineer by background? I mean, is that where you're at, or what was your focus and background that brought you into the industry?
Absolutely. I'm not an engineer, but I'd like to think that I have kind of an engineer mindset, and the fact that I love understanding how things work and how things communicate or work together. So I was basically a liaison between the engineering of our clients and our product or marketing of our business historically. So I was the intermediary, if you will. But in the process of talking with engineers, I got a pretty good understanding of how things work, and things that I didn't go to school for: electrical, technical, mechanical, those type of things. Engineers educated me very.
So you're
early
somewhere
on.
in the middle, that you're able to apply your background and interest areas working with engineers, but what you're really focused on is how you're going to deliver some sort of solutions, or how you're actually, I guess, as an ISV and strategic partner manager, you're going to look at how you're going to not only deliver solutions to a channel, but make sure you have the right solutions for the industry segments that you're working in.
That's exactly right. Yes, sir. Spot on.
And would you say that you are a very energetic and enthusiastic person in this particular space?
I would say so. I thoroughly enjoy my job, and it's really cool to go out in the environment, whether it's an airport or where have you, and see your solution being utilized and utilizing your solution to get on airplanes or get on trains or order food. It's kind of a reinforcement that, hey, what you're doing is actually being used in the environment.
So do you ever order Red Bull when you're out there?
That's how I prepared for this podcast. Actually, as I drank a Red Bull. So yeah, all the time.
So what we're missing is that you actually, I believe, may have had some experience in the industry as well, being a representative with Red Bull.
Oh yeah. Oh yes. That was yeah, I broke in. My first job out of college is working for the New York Red Bull soccer team when they had Thierry Henry. So I went from Wyoming to Jersey and worked in sports for a little bit before tech called my name.
Well, let's just point this out for what it is, that with that kind of background and actually working with a soccer team in sports arenas and viewing that actually does give you a background, because if you think about self-service, or you think about digital signage, or you think about kiosks, some of the leading industries where those came out of actually were in the sports arenas, the college university environment. And so your practical experience, no bull here, would in fact lead you to understand even more clearly the opportunities in front of you within the areas that you're currently working within.
Oh, absolutely. And as and it's evolved since then, but self-service kiosks are almost at every arena now, or you see them in every point of sale or self-service. They're integrated in all aspects of the live entertainment industry, which is fun to see. And they didn't have them when I was working, because that was 2012 when I was doing that. But since then, you best believe they definitely have self-service kiosks at that arena now.
But at that arena, but certainly kiosks and self-service are nothing new to the industry. If you go
No.
take a look at Disney and some other places that are doing that. So let's get down to this a little bit. Just really quickly, if I stand next to you in an elevator and we only have 20 seconds, and I read your name tag, like I was at Las Vegas earlier this week, and I'm reading name tags of everybody attending conventions there, and I see the word Microtouch. So, and I say, okay, so what is Microtouch? Can you give me that? You only get 20 seconds now to tell me about Microtouch.
Absolutely. So Microtouch is the manufacturer of 7 to 65-inch touchscreen applications, and those are on the product, the customer facing side. We also have an extensive history of manufacturing from an OEM perspective, and you might find it interesting that Microtouch was the one that invented projective capacitive type touch. So kind of a legend in the manufacturing space of touchscreens. We have 40 years of experience, and Microtouch is the U.S. division that focuses solely on customer off the shelf type applications. So we can OEM,
In all
we're
kinds of
standard.
industries.
Excuse me?
In all kinds of industries.
All kinds, yes. We subvert any industry. I could give you a pretty solid example of applications that our product is utilized in.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and focus on. I think what we're defining here is that besides being an expert in high energy drinks, that you certainly have a background of really understanding what happens across multiple, let's call them the service industries, because self service is going to be in the service industries. So that's why we have you on today as our conversation guest in self service and also in kiosks. So let's get right down to it. So, all right, look, you already started the conversation here by talking about capacitive touch. I actually sort of know what that is, but I'm going to guess that a lot of people don't. So before you give us that definition, why don't you just first of all give us what you would consider your definition of the self-service industry, the scope of it, or self-service, and also your definition of a kiosk in general.
Oh, great questions. And self-service is it's relying on your customer to make their experience easier and quicker, save them time, make it more convenient, make it easier for them to pay. So self-service is being implemented in every industry to make the customer experience more enjoyable. So go to a grocery store, for example, you have self-checkout for a quicker checkout process so you don't have to stand in line. That's a huge application. In restaurants, self-service is definitely being implemented in places where the monthly or the hourly wage is going up. So they're replacing employees that are in these jobs with these self-service solutions to better accommodate the clients. And when those self-service solutions, they have a wide variety, but hospitality and retail really focus on kiosks, which are freestanding or desktop um, type self-service solutions that allow customers to, again, makes their life easy in these, it makes the retail experience better for the customer, and it makes the service from the retailer that much more measurable. They can measure if, in hospitality and retail, where our focus is, you can measure how long an order takes, you can measure how long a client is standing in line, you can upsell that client, you can get the client information. And as we talk about the future of those self-service solutions and kiosks, we'll highlight how important and what are coming to market that are making it even more profitable for retailers and enjoyable for consumers.
So it's sort of interesting. You brought up a number of different areas there, and I might have a conversational debate with you,
All right.
about a few of these areas that are there. Of course, it's very sensitive area of the industry today is where they talk about labor savings. And traditionally, when somebody starts talking about labor savings, whether it's through self-service or whatever, I'm not necessarily thinking of it really as labor savings. I might agree with you on efficiency and order taking, but I look at it as additional opportunity actually to push more through because a person only has so much time, and if you're able to save them time, their purchases and things may go up. And in addition, I'm not so sure are people. I can understand the grocery industry, but are people really going to replace labor, or are they perhaps going to increase throughput by having more lanes to take those orders?
Absolutely. And when I said that, replacing of labor, I immediately regret it because that is not the intention whatsoever. The intention of why retailers are setting up these are to make it more enjoyable for consumers and better and more efficient. But they have two things in mind: efficiency for their own business and efficiency for clients. In New York, you right after COVID, you saw every single hospitality and retail specific business have a self-service kiosk, whether they were selling boba or they were a high-end restaurant, and it was all for the same purpose. So definitely places like California right now that are implementing kiosks and self-service solutions on a pretty high rate. They're doing it to combat a couple of things, labor shortage being one of them, but efficiency and being able to track inventory and everything like that is really where we see clients kind of implementing these solutions
Well,
for those
let me
reasons.
ask you about two things. I've had some conversations. Well, on an annual basis, I get asked what I think is hot and what's not, and it's always a debate what people view as hot and not. And as we were heading into COVID, I would have told you if somebody had asked me my opinion, and I'm just an opinion here. Uh, I would have said that kiosks are not. That kiosks, in fact, were going to be dead. And then COVID hits, and the grocery store industry was already, of course, working down that way, and certain other industries were working down the kiosk. But I think in the food service restaurant industry, hotels were doing kiosks because they're issuing keys and doing self check in. But it almost seems that COVID turned around the self service kiosk mode of the restaurant industry, of which they now realize that they have a whole bunch of added benefits. Would you agree with the sort of perception or assertion that that actually made the difference to restaurants, or do you think it was just going to be there anyway, or how did you see it?
That I mean, that's the great question too, because I think kiosks were a new development heading into COVID. And you saw a lot of medical temperature taking kiosks, which kind of was a phase. And so it was at the beginning, it was kind of under speculation whether if it would work or if it wouldn't. I think COVID exacerbated the implementation of them. So it definitely, the people that made it work at the beginning really made it work and they reaped the benefits. And then other people kind of saw that success um, and then evolved and implemented them themselves. But when COVID first came out, you saw a handful of companies really take that leap and say it's all or nothing with self-service kiosks, which at the time I thought was a risk. But because of that success and because of all the value added softwares, benefits, and hardware that they've attached to it since then, I really see that they're not going anywhere anytime soon because of how efficient and how they really help businesses. And
Did
the one thing that put the kiosks in jeopardy was, remember that time when, you could pass germs through a touchscreen? Well, it turned out that
absolutely.
that wasn't right. And then that really reinforced that, hey, these kiosks are really doing the Lord's work for our business. Let's implement them. And then implementation went by very quickly the past 2 years.
Well, that's true. And by the way, at the very beginning, did you say that the size of the screens and things that you're working with are starting as small as 7 inch up to 65 inch? Is that what you said?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Because the industry was headed for doing what they call tableside kiosk, which there are several manufacturers that do devices. They sit on the table side. Now, whether they were too small or not, but it's 7 inch screen, and people would probably be more thinking about a tablet at that point. But a tablet can be a kiosk, and so I'm sure that when people originally thought of kiosk, they thought of, I'm checking in an airline or I'm going to an ATM. If they recognize an ATM as a kiosk, and that's in their mind's eye the vision. But by going down to 7 inch, that actually is telling people that a kiosk can be something much smaller as well, something you either hold in your hand or something for self service can be placed in a lot more places, and perhaps with wireless, where you don't need to have full stands and devices and taking up space. Maybe a lot of portability.
Absolutely. And self service to me, the biggest self service tool that we all have is in our pockets every day. And all businesses are trying to push us to order through their app on the phone, on an iPad. So self service integrates our personal devices as much as we rely on building solutions for kiosks too. So you're exactly right. The company that I previously worked with, they really focused on really small, intimate tableside kiosk type designs, and people didn't necessarily want that type of service on their table or another distraction. So then they kind of branched out and put it on desktops of the hotel or put it at the beginning of the restaurant because they found it to be somewhat distracting with some of those earlier implementations of self service and
But what you
kiosks
what you've
on the
pointed out,
tables.
it's sort of like the digital signage industry. A lot of people, they think about digital signage, and you could say, what is it? What's a digital sign or a menu board or whatever it is? Well, you have the three components. And by the way, feel free, because you're the expert, to correct me on this. But you would have the hardware, you
Mhm.
would have the content management piece that's out there, and then you also have the piece that's going to go ahead and distribute, and do the connectivity piece of it. And they may come from three different places, or they may come from one. And we see a lot of screen manufacturers, not offering content management, or not offering the connectivity in there. And it really is a number of different components. You've just brought that up, as far as the hardware and the software. And as far as your experience in it, you can't do one without the other, but our industries need specific types of hardware because of our environment.
Absolutely, you're spot on right there. And our products like that, they need an interface to attract customers, and that's where the ISV partners, the software partners, are so integral and important for companies like ourselves.
Yeah, we did a whole, it's nice of you to, that's very kind of you to mention that, because the IFPTA has a partnership with the RSPA, the Retail Solution Providers Association. And part of what you highlight in there is the distribution channel, that those are a lot of people that put together solutions, for the end user operator, big or small. And it's not a single solution. And so that means that not a necessarily, it's a partnership of sorts. And I guess that's the other side of your job, is to bring those partnerships together, but to provide the hardware components, that are needed to pull it together as well across the board.
That's exactly right. And both the IFBTA and RSPA have been integral in making the connection between ISVs and hardware is very easy. At the events, at the marketing, the podcasts that we do, they're all highly successful in getting our name out there and attracting new ISVs that are looking for partners to grow with.
Great. Well, listen, I think we've done a very good job. I hope our listeners will agree we've done a very good job of sort of defining what we're talking about in kiosk, self-service, and touch. And before we move in, so I think we're at the point where we actually could move into talking about the real opportunities and what does the future look like. But before we do that, let's just take a break for a second, and I'd like to remind our listeners that you know if you're like me and you're constantly exploring, seeking, and feeding a passion for new technology and innovation, as I suspect, by the way, that Tyler is too when he's not drinking Red Bulls, it doesn't matter, whether it's for work or within our industries or outside of our industries, and you apply it to work. If it makes you say wow, or you like it, or you see a great self-service operation or kiosk, take a picture or a video, send a link to me, or pass it on directly at coolideas@robertgrimes.com, because it is how we come up with conversations like this on the Accelerate podcast. And speaking of Accelerate, to subscribe, or if you have any thoughts, comments, or suggestions, please send a note to us and our producer at accelerate@savor, SAVOR.fm. All right. So now that we got those mid-field announcements done, let's just sort of change the subject and have a conversation. So the specific areas of kiosk and self-service within food service, hospitality, and retail, because I know they look at them differently. Could you give us sort of the rundown of where you are seeing the use of both self-service and kiosk integrated within the three industries, and maybe the differences between them? I know this is a big question, but I'm sure you can handle it.
Yes, absolutely. So we'll start off with retail and their adoption of self service and ultimately kiosks kind of go hand in hand. So the inventory situation at retail establishments, let's refer back to COVID and how much of a strain that put on um, inventory and just shipping and all of those hassles. So, this is why retailers kind of pivoted to put the power in the customer's hands to help them alleviate some of these issues by ordering online, being able to have self service kiosks in specific stores that are advertising to a specific demographic, or allowing them to check, have inventory sent to their house instead of picking it up at the store because they didn't have it. It was all retail was based a lot around inventory management, efficiency, those words that we keep using, but that was what they were really highlighting with their type of solutions. Hospitality, I think, kind of looked at the retail, saw how they were becoming better from an operations perspective. And then they implemented it to establish the 6 foot rule and to better alleviate some of the aspects in hospitality that have traditionally been a problem. One business owner in hospitality, I asked her, hey, why are you looking at this self service kiosk? She had a food truck, she had 3 of them. And she says, you know, I I know my kiosk is never going to call in sick. So I was like, oh, okay, that's very that's a very good point. And I said, but what else does it do for you? And she's like, oh, we can change the menu. We can do everything remotely that used to take time to do, and as a result, depreciated some of our returns. The customer always, in hospitality, there was a saying, the customer is always right. Well, now if a customer goes to a self-service kiosk, puts in an order, that order goes to the back of house KDS. The operator of the hospitality establishment does everything right, gives it back to the customer. The customer says, hey, no, I ordered this instead. Well, actually, this was user error, and it's on the customer's fault because they put the order in. And this is where the solution is so important, whether it's in retail or in hospitality, is there's the full solution, but the ISV and the software on top of it really is what sets it apart. Because if that customer has a bad experience in retail or hospitality with that self service or kiosk, it's going to really look bad on that retailer. And there's probably a good chance they're not going to come back because it was a hassle. So it's duplicitous because we're talking about how self-service and kiosks really help the retailer, really help the customer. But if that solution isn't designed correctly, or if it's inconvenience for the customer, then you're going to have some serious
But the
kickback.
but the back end has to tie together with the operational systems. What we're really talking about is the user experience on the front end, whoever that user is, whether they're in the kitchen and they're cooking, whether they're the customer, who's walking up to a kiosk at a truck, perhaps, or perhaps whether it is somebody who's using an application on their phone. It's still got to integrate and work with the systems that are actually, producing the food or selling the hotel room or selling the items.
Exactly. And as we're both aware, within that ecosystem from front to house to back of house to back to front to house, there are 50 different partners and pieces of hardware that are working collaboratively to deliver these. So that's been the real learning factor for a lot of companies and distributors alike, is how do we build a solution that has good customer support, good customer interface, and that works.
So you've brought up some interesting thoughts here that people may not think about, and I actually didn't think about. I think your truck example is a really good one, where in that particular case, because it's funny, I don't. Even I see these things. I don't think about them all the time. I've gone up to many trucks before, outside the Javits Center during NRF this year. They had trucks out there. And what did they have on the outside? Self-ordering using a kiosk attached to the truck. So if you only have space in the truck for 2 or 3 people, to have that menu displayed out there and being able to order that way makes an awful lot of sense. I don't know why I didn't think of it, because I've seen it in food courts. But that is a natural example of something that would have helped, and it wasn't a labor issue. It was an issue to get more orders in, so they spend their time cooking, not taking orders. And
Absolutely.
because there's only so much space, so it isn't like they're not going to use the space. I think that your example, in some other areas as well. Um, the other place where I've seen it quite a bit recently, including this past week, is on the front of vending machines. There is no person involved, yet they want to be able to display accurately everything they have, and they're putting basically a kiosk onto a vending machine.
Yeah, we see that application. And if you're at the Javits, how about that self-service convenience store that's right at the front of it? You walk in there with you swipe your NFC on your credit card. It lets you in and then it knows exactly what you've picked up using RFID or NFC, and then you just walk out, and that's
Well,
self-service to the heart.
absolutely. I mean, yesterday or the day before going through the airport, same thing. Self-service, unattended operations that are there, and while the example you gave, really wasn't necessarily talking about the kiosk end of it or the signage end of it, obviously, people are scanning. They're using kiosks to go ahead and add additional items in, get information. You have the digital signage in there. And maybe they don't notice it in that environment because maybe they're paying with their phone and they're going in through a gate. But really, that's all tied into the same type of self-service operation, no matter what the screen looks like. They are going to be in there. You can't not do it that way.
Absolutely. And retailers are finding new ways to add to that experience. So getting them to use the self-service as it is now is one thing, but you got to continuously educate and make it easier for customers to continue to want to use your service, which I think companies are doing an incredible job of making that happen in today's environment.
All right, so since we're having the conversation pointing out some new ways of doing business, perhaps. So you get the trucks, I get the vending, that are out there. But, I do see that there are many new opportunities out there, where screens and touchscreen and self-service and again, what is a kiosk? I think a kiosk is what's running on that hardware. It's the hardware itself. It's not necessarily, the old kiosk sitting on a stand, which it certainly can be. That there's probably many new ways that we're going to see, or new opportunities. Now, by the way, on the vending side, the reason the vending gets exciting to me is because if I go to, and I'm going to now tie a few together, but I was talking to somebody the other day at the Pizza Expo, and when I went into the Hyatt Regency in Seattle and I saw a Slice, which is a SLYCE, which is the name of a pizza company itself, but yet they had a vending machine in the Hyatt serving fresh pizza. So you chose your toppings, it did it, it cooked them very fast, and it came out in 6 minutes. And I look at that, and it had a touch screen, and the touch screen on the front of it is a kiosk, because you have to be able to place what you want your toppings to be on which sides. And pizza is one of those things that's very graphical. So you really need that picture. But why do they do it? They do it because they can't keep their operations open 24 hours a day. That's why RoboBurger is doing it. And they have a screen on the front, which is a kiosk. So, it also extends our operations. So I'm interested. You see a lot of different industries. You see healthcare, you see the stadiums. What are the missed opportunities, or what should the food service or the hotel industry be thinking about that maybe we should steal from some of these other industries? Some great ideas for self-service and kiosk.
Well, that's a good one, and that's I think that they've done a pretty good job of stealing efficient processes from other industries and integrating them already. And I think NRF really highlighted that. The When we were in New York, and that little segment that we were in, the little space where they had the robo pizza being made, and the appetizers being automatically ordered through the kiosk solutions, they they're they're taking the operations, and now they're applying robotics to it, to where you're exactly right. We might be seeing restaurants in the next 5 years that don't have any people at all. It's just going to be a drive-through that is totally mechanical inside. It's robots making the fries, burgers, everything you order on your app. So that's where it's going, and I think that there's prime examples that highlight that, showing where the industry is going. So the missed opportunities, I think, were kind of uncovered and realized during COVID, when the haves implemented self-service kiosks, a self-service and kiosks, and the other ones kind of stood on the sideline to see if it was successful. I think those were the missed opportunities. But now I think it's very evident that not only is it here to stay, that the evolution of it is about to hit, from a robotics perspective and an AI perspective, is about to hit a different threshold that will really separate the industry from a service perspective.
Actually, so let me ask you about your opinion on two different opportunities. I see these as opportunities. Where do you see the engagement going in the drive-through?
I see that as being more automated as well. There's an interesting company, ISV, called SodaClick. And what they do is they have drive-through technology that can translate. If I'm speaking English and I'm in Italy, it can translate English to Italy so they can get my order correct.
Is it Italian or is it Italy? It's probably Italian spoken in Italy.
Yes, definitely Italian spoken in Italy.
Too much Red Bull.
No kidding. And I'm going there next week, so you can see what's on my mind right now.
Italy, or are you going to Red Bull?
I'm going to drink some Red Bull in Italy next week.
There you go. I'll be in the UK next week, so I'll have a cheer for you on that. So I get that, but there are other opportunities too that people don't think about. Like, for instance, you work within healthcare, and healthcare operations have to serve food service all the time. And aren't they making some sort of changes from just the standard vending machines? I do see fresh food in the vending machine, but not freshly cooked food. But then I take a look at even at NRF, the lockers that were there, and then I see people who are saying, "Let's bring back the automat." that they used to have in New York, where the food is in the window, you choose what you want, but it's freshly prepared food. And again, you need screens to be able to show it, or those displays actually on the front of the locker are in fact screens and you can do the touch. So do you see those kinds of new things, and are there other things like that that we should be aware of?
Oh, absolutely. And touchscreens have always been control interfaces for access control for these lockers, and we see a lot of those lockers really being utilized across all industries. You can go to a sporting event, and hey, they don't allow your backpack in that sporting event. You check out a locker, you get a ticket. It's kind of a digital bellhop, if you will. But medical is definitely using those. You see the major retailers using lockers to go pick up orders. So, despite the different industries, the applications in which self service and kiosks are integrated into are being used for a lot of the same things: picking up stuff, dropping off stuff, efficiency. So, the healthcare is definitely going to benefit from the lockers, the control, and kiosks, because that's where a lot of different that's where a lot of people, you don't want to make mistakes, especially in a hospital picking up pharmaceuticals and things like that. So these lockers are really helping with efficiency there too. That's what we see.
Yeah, I can tell you that the area that you're working in is probably going to be one of the growing areas of opportunity and futuristic areas, because if you just look at the movies themselves, everything is going into touch. Now, we may define what touch is. It may be in the air, like Tom Cruise in not Minority. It might have been in Minority Report.
Oh
And
yeah.
he's sitting there doing, well, that is probably next generation. It might be 10, 15 years from now, but there's going to have to be something that drives, all that out there. If I were to just ask you, it may just be an opinion, or it may be fact, or maybe you're going to share some top secret, that Microtouch is working on. But is there something that you think is going to be the future? Let's say 5 or 10 years from now. Where does your industry evolve?
The industry revolves or evolves around customer interaction and customer information. When a customer walks into a building, I have the company is going to know exactly what you're in there for. They're going to know what times. That the customer data and information is what ultimately what's going to be the gold mine to predict people's buying habits, to predict everything regarding the customer, because their ultimate satisfaction is what we're trying to achieve, right? Is as easy as possible. So with it's such a broad uh, it's so broad, and it's so in its infancy right now. 5 years from now, we might be integrating VR. We might be integrating all sorts of different technology. The artificial intelligence, I believe, is going to have the greatest impact on our industry moving forward, because it's going to lead to so many predictive analyses of their customer that they'll get a pretty good real time feel of what they need in the market, what they need on hand, what how many people they need to have employed, and everything like that. I really think it's going to add a whole different layer to our whole industry and how we operate as customers and as businesses.
Well, I think you've given us, a pretty good idea of where the future might go, or at least where you may play in that as well. And if somebody wants to understand more about self-service kiosks, I know about the Digital Signage Expo. They have a lot of that there. NRF certainly does. Where is it that you think they should go? Where is it that Microtouch, is that if somebody really wants to explore all the options and learn about the future?
Absolutely. Microtouch, we are always trying to be in an educative position to where we're trying to educate customers, resellers, and distributors on the new solutions that are in the market and the solutions that would fit their type of application. Because there's always a good, better, best, and having those solutions and educating them on those is what we're really good at. But this is where we really rely on our partner network. Our other hardware partners, we go out and we actively make sure that the printers, scanners, stands, everything work collaboratively with our products. And then we educate the resellers and the distributors on, hey, these work really well. We're going to cut down on customer support tickets because we've already vetted this from our side. So the education can come from Microtouch, any of our partners, our distribution partners. We try to make it so the whole ecosystem is on the same page.
Right. Hey, look, I appreciate that. And then the places where you go as well, but it takes a number of parties to bring it together. But of course it's all centered around, the hardware itself, the software piece, and then the people who actually figure out how to make it work, those partners.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's a great wrap up here. So listen, I want to thank you for joining us today and sharing your expertise and your experience. With us in what is a very important and growing area, as you heard, new areas. You heard those new areas. So, Tyler, thank you very much. For coming on to the Accelerate Spotlight today.
I appreciate the opportunity, Robert. Thanks for having the conversation with me.
Great. Well, this Accelerate Spotlight podcast is brought to you by the International Food and Beverage Technology Association. The IFBTA is the industry's leading voice of technology within the food and beverage industries and their extended partners, of course, providing thought leadership as your single impartial go-to resource. The IFBTA offers in-person and online communities to connect with your peers. The Exchange, an all-encompassing global technology directory and an industry-wide professional education and certification program. And by the way, you can learn about Microtouch on the Exchange as well. The bottom line is the IFBTA is your place to gather, learn, and share. So thank you for joining Tyler and me, and we look forward to talking with you again on our next accelerated conversation together.